I'm Bea.
And I'm Sam.
And we're two best friends who like to talk shit about smut, wingspan,
and sometimes books.
Join us every Wednesday for a new episode.
We are back with another author interview. Today we are sitting down with A Lonergan, who is the author of many series, but for the purposes of today's interview, we are going to be talking about the Prophecy of the Mage Queen series. The first book is A Vow of Lies, which has featured on our author spotlight, and obviously the 4 books we have covered over the last 2 weeks. Today's interview does have mentions of mental health and suicide, so if these are topics that you are not comfortable with, please proceed with caution and take care. We absolutely loved sitting down and talking all things Prophecy of the Mage Queen, so I will hand you over to lovely A Lonergan.
Hi, I'm A Lonergan, and I am the author of Vow of Lies, Take Me, Assassin's Reign, Transfix, and too many others. And I write paranormal romance and fantasy romance.
Yay, thank you. We were talking about this, I think, on last week's episode. Yeah. Yesterday's episode that came out. And we were talking about the other books that you've published. Like, you are like busy, and that is incredible. We were like scrolling through Amazon, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, we're like, there's another one. We're like, there's another one."
Yes. So I've been writing since I was 11 years old. So I actually didn't know how to read until I was like 9 or 10. I couldn't read. I kind of like faked it and just pretended like I knew what I was doing until I just taught myself how. And so I hated anything that had to do with reading or English for the longest time. So a little bit of background, my dad and my mom got a divorce when I was around 4. And then my dad passed away when I was 9. So there was a lot of... I don't want to say like I was forgotten, because my mom is a great mom and she was a great mom then too, but she had 3 kids under the age of 4. So for her, it was easy for us to kind of get lost in the chaos of just life. And so when I did finally teach myself how to read, I loved books. It was my escape. I quickly fell into them. And then I was a very depressed child because of a lot of things that had happened to me at a young age. And so I started writing poetry first. Really dark poetry. And then it was songs, poetry, and then it was like books. And books became my escape. And so I have struggled with mental illness for a really long time, my whole life, pretty much. And it's been the thing that keeps me alive, keeps me going when I'm really struggling. The words, the characters, the adventure, the romance, it's waiting for me. And so that, so there's always going to be lots of books.
And so how old were you when you published your first book then?
20. Wow.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
And have you always been like self-published, or have you done a mixture of trad and self?
So I did trad first.
Okay.
And I realized very quickly that it wasn't for me. And it might have been just because it was a small trad company, but I lost a lot of control, and I'm a control freak. So I didn't want to continue that way. And I was like, you know what? I like having control over every little bitty aspect. So I ran with that. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been, because I'm 30 now, so it's been 10 years of publishing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, to be yeah, to be published at such a young age, like usually, you know, people are probably around, you know, we're all the same age, but probably starting just now, you know, just starting to get like maybe their first one under their belt, particularly traditionally. I know self-publishing and indie publishing is a bit different now, and it's a bit more accessible, I guess is the word, but
Absolutely.
to be trad, like that's crazy, you know, impressive to be so young and getting picked up. I know, like you said, it didn't work out, but still, you know,
Thank you.
yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So can you tell us, if you're allowed to, what you are currently working on?
I did a title reveal the other day for Bewitched by the Voodoo King. It is a multi-author series. So like we're all writing our own book. They have to be like, I think it has to be 80,000 words or more. And so it's like not like an anthology. They're not all going to be together. It's just like similar themes, similar vibes. So it's like hate to love and paranormal rom-com.
Ooh,
so mine is set in New Orleans. It is arranged marriage, hate to love, a kitchen witch that loves to booby trap. I'm so excited for it.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds so much fun.
Thanks. Yeah, I am. Honestly, there aren't, like, I get really excited, but like when you write a series, it kind of like is like, oh, when am I gonna finish this? Like, I love these characters, you just love them, but then it just like keeps going. So it's honestly been a while. Probably the first book that I really, really felt like this excitement. And I mean, I was pregnant and going through miscarriages before I was pregnant with Evangeline. I was going through a lot writing the 4 books in this series. But so like it just feels so good to be this excited again. And it's a standalone, so that makes me feel even more excited.
Oh, I love a standalone.
Yeah, we do.
When you just want to get through a book and you're not committed to a series and you just finish a book and think, yeah, that has satisfied me. I love a standalone.
And I think particularly in this genre, they're not as common, are they? Usually you're talking like minimum duologies to trilogies, if not like more. So it is nice to have that as like a bit of we always say a palate cleanser.
Yes, that's a good way of like describing it. It's definitely been a palate cleanser because I've been writing fantasy, which is, you know, like the Thigh Dagger and the Epic Journey and the Dark, and this is like, there's always gonna be darkness in my books because like it lives in me. So having like a rom-com-y feel, it's so refreshing. Like I'm laughing while I'm writing. Like there's a scene where Flower blows up in her face and I'm just like dying laughing while writing it. It just feels so good. Yeah.
And also it must be nice that like you get to kind of like dabble in it, and it's just like, not when we say one and done, not to say that that's the only time you're gonna do that type of book or genre, but because it's a standalone, you can like focus on it, like finish it, and you're like, okay, I'm not thinking like, okay, but because
it's not long-term commitment.
Yeah, because most of the time when you're publishing, like you're publishing your first, but you've probably already like at least 2 revisions deep in your second, and you're just on this like wheel, aren't you, of like churning out and churning it out. Whereas to readers, there's this big gap of like a year, 18 months between releases. So it must be nice to have that difference.
Yeah, it's very nice to think when I'm done with this, like mentally, it's like taking a load off, because like you don't have like this pressure of, okay, how am I going to end this book and then like fish it into the next one. And with this, we can, like, the requirement is that we can make it a duology if we want to. We can't. Amazing. It just has to be like a certain time frame from release, and then you get the rights to the whole thing, and then it's not going to be 80,000 words. It's probably going to be like 120,000. Like, I can't wrap up. I could hardly wrap up these books. Like,
and you had 4 like to get through. Yeah.
So
No, I feel it.
it's gonna be a big one. But oh well. I'll wrap it all up and nobody's gonna be like, there was a Cliffy. No cliffhangers.
Yeah, right, exactly. And when are those due for release?
So they start releasing in August of this upcoming year.
So exciting. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for that. Oh,
I'm so excited.
I love a run-on series. So we're gonna obviously kind of get on to why we're really, really here, because obviously we are both just coming out of our obsession, even though we're still obsessed with the Prophecy of the Mage Queen series. And because I've been in a little bubble, this is all I have been consuming. It's just been my life for the last like month and a half, which has been incredible. But our first question to do with the series is, which character from the Prophecy of the Mage Queen series do you feel like you most closely relate to?
I don't know, like maybe a mix of Riva and Juniper. Just freaking over you, but also like observant. Like I try to watch the things that I say and how I act, but like sometimes Riva comes out and I'm like, I'm ready to stick a knife in you.
Yeah.
Or a fork. You can ask my husband. I stabbed him with a fork once.
Love it.
We love it.
As you should.
Yeah.
He tried to steal my food. I was like.
And I guess like because we said this in last week's episode, yesterday's episode, but this week's episode just gone, is that I think for us, particularly in book 3 and mainly book 4, how much we both felt Riva in those books, I think, as a character, and how, I don't want to say like completely mirrored real life, but how I feel like there's a bit of Riva in everyone, if that kind of makes sense. When we were reading it, like we both were like, oh, that really like,
yeah, that hit home with us.
Yeah,
her grief. Yeah, it was I guess like I always forget, there's, in the 4 books there's so much that happens that like when I'm done with a book I'm like, I'm done, goodbye, like poof, goodbye. So yeah, with Riva, her mental health was really hard for me to write. And even like thinking back on it, I have struggled, like I said, with mental illness my whole life. Several suicide attempts up until like when my son was 4. So, and then I haven't had another suicide attempt since then, but like it's always kind of like right there. And so writing a lot of the scenes from her grief, it was really hard. I found myself crying and bawling my eyes out at this keyboard so many times. And then when Juniper kind of found out her grief, it was hard. And I think I wrote that from like a perspective of maybe my husband looking in, because I know that there were many times where he didn't know that I was struggling so hard, and then there would just be that day that it was darker than usual. And so so I feel like a lot of that was kind of like writing where my husband would have felt, or I would have felt if somebody had come to me and I'm like, we're together all day, every day, and you've been fighting this whole time. Yeah, that was super hard, but I felt like it was necessary, especially because, and I'm not going to give names or anything, but especially because of what happens, that I didn't feel like Juniper could experience that kind of grief. Like Riva was closer. I felt like it was necessary for. And Grove was more reserved, she deals with her grief and snark and wanting to stab things. But I felt like it was necessary to kind of to give that a platform too.
Yeah, and I think we both said this because I read them after Sam. So obviously Sam read book 4 like what, in like a day? Was it like a day? I think you read it, not even a day.
Whenever Alyssa gave it to me, I was like, I've got it, I'm going.
Yeah. So I was slightly lagged than Sam because I was reading all 4 like in a series. And probably for you as well, like you were mentioning about the standalone coming out, it must almost feel like not necessarily a weight, but like this complete series, it's got so much of yourself in it. It was a period in your life where you were feeling such strong emotions, and it's like, I'm not saying wrapped up with a bow in like a perfect way, but it's like done, it's completed, but also you can look back at it and think probably there's so many pieces of yourself likely in those characters in so many different ways, you know.
Yes. My kind of being able to say, like, this is done. This part of me is done. Like, yeah, like I can literally close the chapter. I can literally close the book and say everything that I went through, it's right here, done, goodbye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
And obviously, like you said, you've got such exciting projects coming up as well.
Yeah.
Which I feel like leads on, Sam, probably to your question really well next.
Yes, it does. So obviously, as we've discussed, you have a huge range of books out at the moment, and all within different genres. So what is your favourite genre to write in, and why?
I love fantasy romance. I think that it'll always be the GOAT. That is what I fell in love with as a teenager who was struggling. I just needed that escape, and I found it in fantasy and fantasy romance. So like I love writing contemporary romance. That's kind of like a palate cleanser when all the fantasy is too much. I'm like, all right, let's give some real life a go. But those will never be featured under A Lonergan again. Just because like A Lonergan is my fantasy and paranormal. So like I want people to know what they're gonna get when they go into my books, that they're all just kind of gonna be the same. But so fantasy romance, just there are no rules. Like there are, you know, but like I can create my own world. Whereas like paranormal romance and like urban fantasy, you don't have to, like, you have to have guidelines. Like if it's happening in New Orleans, like I can't just change New Orleans history. Now I can add my own lore in, but like people are gonna read it and be like, what the freak did she do to New Orleans, you know? Whereas like I created the Floria Forest.
Yeah, you've got like completely blank canvas to go with.
Yes, and then I create my own maps. So
wow,
being able to sit down and put the whole map together and be like, okay, this is how long it's gonna take to travel from here to here, and this, that is so, I don't know, it makes the control freak in me super happy and satisfied.
Yeah, no, I bet.
Yeah, and I think that's some of the reasons that we love reading fantasy, because you're never like, oh, that's really unrealistic, that wouldn't happen in real life. And it's like, no, it's supposed to be like that. Like that's why I'm reading, because I want to get away from real life. Like I like having this new world that I'm in that has no rules and has all different kinds of creatures and magics. Like this is where I belong right now.
Absolutely, yes. You can have a random dragon show up, like,
why not?
Yeah.
So I feel like a question that Sam and I, from recording the last episode, were literally like asking each other, and we've just been desperate to know. Do you think we'll ever get any novellas from the side characters of Prophecy of the Mage Queen? Because if you needed encouragement, Sam and I need a Reva and Alric novella like we need air or water, because we loved the two of them so much that I just want to keep reading forever. Like their dynamic is just, I'm obsessed with them.
I'm considering it. So I love these books so much. I put so much time and effort into the cover, the art. I mean, y'all know, the formatting and even character art for it, that I want to do special editions. And so currently, my award-winning series, like next week I'm doing special editions on Kickstarter with these. Okay. an omnibus with the sprayed edges and the art and all that. I want to do the same thing for these. So the plan is probably at the end of this year. At the end of this year, I want to do a special edition omnibus. So all of them in one, because like, look, I get it. It's expensive to buy books as is. And I don't want like people to have to buy 4 of them like at $60 a piece when we can just do like $70 for one and call it a deal. And it's got the foiling and it's got even prettier art inside of it and pages. I want all of it because I feel like I need to celebrate such a momentous series of my career, of my life, because I love these characters so much. They were so real to me. They kept me company in some very dark times. And so I feel like they deserve that. So yes, so Reva and Alric are probably going to get a novella. I'll probably do like it at the end of the omnibus. I'll do a like some special content or whatever. And then a few months later, I'll release it on my newsletter or something so that everybody gets the chance, even, you know, if they can't afford the omnibus. Because like, I get it. Money gets tight. The world sucks. Let's just make this easy on everybody so that everybody gets a little taste of that freedom that they need.
Yeah, we always say like, as readers that I feel like this genre probably particularly more than things like, you know, non-fiction and so on, it's wonderful, but like it is not a cheap hobby to have. Like as Sam and I sit here with literally like I'm like, if you ever want to know where our credit card debt has gone, this is the prime example where it is. But obviously as readers, I feel like we all have that mutual enjoyment of special editions and beautiful books. Like a trophy purchase is like, there's nothing, like literally sat here with 3 unopened boxes on my shelf that have come today, but like that's what like we're all here for. But I love that you're thinking about that, like being able to give it to people, but like in one fell swoop, as opposed to like having, you know, 4 books, because we always say unfortunately it's not a cheap hobby, is it? And that's why we love KU. Sorry, that's a bit off topic, but that's why KU is so great, is because it makes reading, I guess, a bit more, I don't know, accessible for people.
Yeah, it's more affordable because it is very expensive. I can't tell you how many times like I've seen a Kickstarter, because the Kickstarters are so popular right now with the special editions that I'm like, I want to support that, but I can't afford it. And so like just me, like being a normal person, I'm like, I want people to be able to afford it, because there is a range of diversity of like different, like everybody comes from somewhere different that have read these books. When I meet them at book signings and when I talk to people, like we're all so different. We all come from different backgrounds. And so I want to be able to have it accessible no matter where you are.
Well, I can absolutely guarantee you that we will add those to our ever-growing shelves of collections. And the remainder of the 3 hardbacks for the rest of the series.
Yeah, because I need this to match, and then I'll also buy special editions.
Yeah. Well, so I was about to make an announcement, but I have like giveaways. I've got so many things going on my Instagram right now with the title reveal, and then I've got a giveaway next week for this. I'm doing an international giveaway, and I'm like, when do we have time to tell people that actually you can get all 4 of the books through me right now? So I just finished uploading last night all of the files to my distributor, and so whenever you're ready, I got them.
Yeah. Sam will be in touch with our order. We are so ready. And
they print in the UK, so like.
Yeah, you said. Yeah, that's really good.
The ones you sent us came like, I spoke to you and like 2 days later they were here. I was like, be they here?
That's awesome. I freaking love that so much. Yeah, they're super quick. In fact, I'm sending out copies to some TikTokers in the Netherlands, and I'm like, it cost me like $5 to ship them from the printer, and I'm like, I'm giving everybody books.
Yeah, we have it like on the reverse, because not loads of special editions, but like a lot of special edition stuff. Like you guys get better covers than we do in the US, and so like stuff will get announced and we're like, it's sometimes more for the shipping than it is for the books. I'm lucky. My sister actually lives in the US, but obviously she comes home intermittently. Like she came home at Christmas and she had to check an extra case on her flight just to bring back the amount of books that I had like purchased online and put for click and collect, or like got delivered to her apartment, and she then flew them across the Atlantic for me.
That is so amazing.
She's like, bless her, it was 6 hardbacks actually the other day that she did. In one, she was like, I'm never doing that again. Sam joins in on it. It's not just my book.
Yeah, I'm like, right,
Sam
what
as
can
well.
I buy?
You're gonna have to start taking a commission.
I'll send me stuff on Target. I'm like, look at this on Target. Like, look at this on Target.
I'm like, so is that you telling me that you want my sister to fly it over? She's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, okay.
See, I've already shipped it to her. Are you kidding me? Purchase is on its way.
Yeah.
We were talking about the novellas. I was going to say, if you haven't listened to this week's episode, I just like came up with a fan fiction about Leo going on a pilgrimage to find other giants that were still alive. And I was like, oh, B, this we're having 3 novellas now. And she was like, Sam, shut up.
I was like, you're writing fan fiction.
So I didn't get to finish it, but that would be amazing. I love Leo. I
love Leo.
Sam's a big
He's
fan.
Such a teddy bear. Like every single time I wrote him in, I just wanted to squeeze him. I love him. So that would be great too. Like the back of content in the back of this omnibus is gonna be thick. Okay.
I feel like we're just adding like.
Yeah. I'm like,
honestly, if you want to just do a run just for us, like I'm happy to just like you want to just do like a limited run for the 2 of us.
Like you just send me like bullet pointed, okay? Bullet point, send it all to me, and I'm gonna be like, yes. I love it. That's my favorite thing.
I feel like we've sort of talked about this because I think you're in your office, but can you tell us about your writing space? So are you like a coffee shop writer? Are you an at-home writer?
So I'm an at-home writer. I have 2 kids, my 10-year-old and my 1-year-old. And so I would love nothing more to go to a coffee shop and sit down and have my headphones in and have the vibe. Okay. My vibe is screaming kids. One's doing Legos, one's taking a nap, but like when they're both up, they're both screaming. And so, this is my office. It's been rearranged, changed up so many times. I own a printing company. And so I actually have to get a big toolbox to come in here for my printing company. So it's going to look different soon. But yeah, sometimes it's at the kitchen table. Sometimes it's here. But I wish I was a coffee shop girl. I'd probably eat way too many muffins though. So it's probably a good thing.
I'd get so distracted. I'm such a people watcher. I'd be like, oh, what are they talking about over there?
The whole time you're sitting there pretending to write, but really listening to the conversation.
It's a really romantic idea, isn't it? Like to be like writing in a coffee shop, but the reality is like it's not productive. Like it's
yes.
So kind of like on the same topic. So what would be your like go-to advice for any aspiring authors that might be listening, like myself?
So I looked at this question and like stewed over it because I constantly think about like what I would do differently if I was starting out again, because I have like 30 plus books and they just kept coming out. They just kept cranking them. And like I think about it often that I would say market the crap out of your first book. Because like I said, I finished that book and I'm like, close that section of my life and goodbye. And then I never want to talk about it again. Even though I love it, it's kind of it's one of those things where I didn't realize that was what I was doing, as I was like, okay, bye. On to the next one, because the readers are always okay. Backtrack a little bit. When I first started writing, rapid release was becoming a thing in the indie world. And I had some mentors who were like, if you don't put out books, they're going to forget about you. Like, you can't just start with one book and think that you're going to build a platform with one book. And I was like, bet. Like, you know how many stories I got going up on here? It was kind of like a challenge of how many books I can get out as quick as possible. And then I realized that it was a very detrimental thing, because I did not know how to market at all. And so like I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been cranking out the books. I've got over 30 plus, I've got 30 plus books, and people are like, wait, never heard of you. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I don't have a market for anything. Like, get your books in every blogger, every TikToker's hand. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how many followers they have. Sure, if they've got a lot of followers, great. If they like, it does not matter. You want to get your book into as many people's hands as possible. And like, but what if they don't like it? Like, like, what if they don't like? Because then you take it personally, and you're like, what if they don't like me? Because I am these characters. I have written these characters. I have put my blood, sweat, tears, essence, my life into these. Like, what if they don't like me? In fact, like when I submitted to y'all, I was like, y'all were the first like TikToker blogger that I reached out to, and I was like, can I send you a book? They're only hardbacks. I don't have paperbacks of these books. Like, and then I was like, you know what? Screw it. They're beautiful. I want people to see how beautiful they are. I did these for a reason. I care about these characters in the story, so I'm just gonna screw it. I'm gonna send it out. And so that's my biggest advice, is get your book into everyone's hands. That it doesn't matter who, because sure, like that person who's got 150,000 followers, great. Their book, their post might go viral, or the reader who has 500 followers, they loved your book so much that it has thousands and thousands and thousands of views just because of how hyped and how excited they are. And that actually happened to me recently. Somebody I'd never heard of, she got on my ARC team, and she posted a TikTok, and the video blew up. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I didn't send her a copy. Like, she was in my ARC network. And so by some fluke, and I was like dancing. I was like, oh my gosh, I got tired of this video. Oh, it's gone. And she didn't have very many followers, but she had so many views and saves. She had over 400 saves and like over 400 comments. And I was like, what is going on? And then I realized, like, with that, when somebody loves your books, when somebody loves your characters, it doesn't matter who they are, because that genuine excitement is going to fly. Everybody's going to see it. They're going to want a piece of that.
No, it is like it's sound advice, because I think as well, we have like a podcast Discord where we, put all our current reads and what we're reading and so on, and people share. And then, when we started doing the author spotlight, we were like, right, we had not, this is not in it, but we used to get quite a few emails from indie authors saying, will you talk about my book on the podcast? And we're like, yes, we'd love to, but like, because of lives and whatever, sometimes we're booked up in terms of episodes for like 2 to 3 months. And so it always felt so frustrating. We're like, we'd love to, can we do 6 months from now? Because it's such a silly answer, isn't it? When authors are like, well, my book releases next month. And it's like, how do you like say yes? But so when we decided to do the author spotlight, we were like, look, we'll do them. There's 2 of us. We can get 2 done a month. They're 20 minutes each. They're spoiler free, so anyone can listen. And we're like, we'll just put the form out there.
Yeah,
and we'll get like maybe like 11 to 12 submissions. That's 1 a month. We're good. Like, that's a year's worth. And then it was just like, I kept texting Sam, like, there's like a lot. I'm like, there's a lot in here. And she's like,
it's still going.
My phone just kept pinging and we were like, oh my gosh. And then when we started doing them, we keep saying to our listeners, like, do you guys like these? And then when they start, like, one of our listeners, Kirsty, has read the whole series, and then she puts up the pictures of like, and we're like, yes, we're so happy that like this is working. Because probably similar to you with writing, you make something in a room, well, I say on our own, but me and Sab on our own, and then you put it out into the world, and you don't always see like the after effect. Like, you don't see the audience then reacting to it. So it's like you just put something out into the darkness and go, let's just see if it sticks. You know?
When I sent Sam the 4th book, I was like, was like hyperventilating. I was like freaking out. So yeah, you don't see what's going on once you send it out. But I was like,
It is.
You were probably like, why isn't she messaging me? But it's because I was like with my Kindle, not speaking to anybody.
I was like, it's horrible. She hated it. It was the worst book of the series. She didn't want any more. Like,
I spoke to her. I think you sent it like in the evening, our time, whatever day it was. And I spoke to her the next day at like lunchtime. She still got 75% of the way through. I was like, Sam, I was like, you had it like last night. She's like, yeah.
Did you even sleep? Did you even breathe? What did you eat? Taking care of you.
Sam's a machine.
No, I'm not.
Sam is a machine when it comes to reading. We just released our, was it February or January reads? And because I've been MIA writing, what was it, Sam? Like, how many books
12.
in January? 12 in a month. That's
I love that.
Even I've got nobody to talk to be with you writing, so I'm just like, ha 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 ha.
I love that.
Crazy.
Okay, this question, like I've had it since I did the author spotlight. It's been in my head ever since. What was the inspiration around Juniper's appearance and like her not knowing what she looked like? Because for me personally, learning the world through Juniper's eyes was such a unique way of world building, because usually you're just told things, but I felt like we were learning with Juniper when I was reading it. And what was the inspiration behind it?
So a lot of my books are dreams. They're dreams that I had, and I wake up. So Transfixed, for example, it was literally like the opening scene is a dream that I had, and the whole book was inspired from that. So this, so Vow of Lies, when she is kidnapped, she, that was a dream. And so a lot of the dreams, like you can't like see yourself in dreams. Like, you know, like you have to like see in a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So much of the world building was like the dream. And then I had several dreams after that initial one that that kind of tied into the world. So I would say really like the way that you dream and the way that you sleep is kind of like how I did my world building. It's kind of, I was learning with the dream, if that makes sense.
That's so interesting. I love that.
That's amazing. It's one of my favorite things about the first book was like learning about Juniper with Juniper. Like she didn't even know her name, and I just thought it was so unique. Like I've never read anything like that.
Yeah. Do you remember when we did the author spotlights and we were going through them and reading the samples, and we read the sample of this and we read it and we were like, yep, done deal.
I was like,
we
big fat yes for that one.
We were like, doesn't know what she looks like, doesn't know why she's there. We were like, yep. We were like, tick, done.
And then to do the author spotlight, like just like for fairness, we just put everything into a random generator. Oh, so it generated A Vow of Lies for me, and I was like, ha, yes. And it generated Metal Slinger for me, which is obviously Rachel's book, and I was like, ha ha, me again.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Yeah. When y'all emailed me, I was like, I was picked. Like, they like it. They're gonna like it. I hope they like it. Oh my gosh, I was freaking out because, like I said, y'all were the first like blogger, TikToker that I sent a book out to. So I was freaking out. I was losing my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, are they gonna like me? Are they gonna like it?
A big fat resounding yes.
Yes, we ate it up. And we've had so many of our listeners. Well, I think we messaged you. I think it was when we released the author spotlight and we hit the charts with it, like the podcast charts because of it. And we were like, oh my gosh, yeah. We've had so many of our listeners message us and say like that they've loved the series. I know particularly Kirsty, who's one of our listeners, was messaged because she's recently read it along with us and was messaging us like, oh, I'm obsessed. We're like, yeah, I know. And then when Sam got book 4 early, she was like rubbing it in everyone's faces.
She was like, how are you reading that?
Yeah.
I was like, ha ha ha. I was like, don't worry, it's coming on Friday. Like you've got like 4 days. It's not like months in advance. You're okay.
My poor editor. I like finished it like 2 or 3 weeks before like the release date.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was just really struggling with the ending on it, like on how I wanted to take it. And so I remember when I finished it, I was like, do you think like this is possible? Like, are we gonna meet the release date? Like, are we gonna get it? And she was like, yeah, we got it. I was like, okay. And I was so nervous. But yeah, so when you got it, it had literally just been finished.
Oh, I'm honored, honestly.
I was like, it's finally done.
So one of our next questions is, you have such a huge mix of different species magic types in the series. You kind of just answered, I guess, some of it in the previous question, but where does that inspiration come from? Do you also get that kind of inspiration from dreams, or do you pull it from somewhere else?
So I growing up, like I said, you know, it was the escape. It was, those creatures were things that like I was like, I wanted a dragon. I wanted a giant mythical wolf creature. I actually have a wolf dog, so you know. And so I wanted all of those things. So to put them into my books, it feels like such a warm and cozy feeling to be able to to have them in some kind of way. But also like diversity. I feel like I needed as many diverse characters, especially like the magical creatures that like she meets and has to that she has to deal
win
with.
over. Yeah, like win over, like get on her side. Yeah.
Yes. But I will actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the Sky Beasts. Those were inspired by Zelda, Legend of Zelda.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So my little boy loves Legend of Zelda. We play Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom together, and then he got one of the other ones, and you have to learn how to ride the Sky Beasts in it. And I don't know what they're called on Legend of Zelda, but I was like, man, that'd be freaking cool. So yeah, that was inspired. In fact, one of my readers, she messaged me and she was like, so I feel like this monster was like a Lizalfo from Legend of Zelda. And I was like, yeah, it was inspired. And she was like, that's so cool. And so she's like picking it apart. She's like, what about this one? What about this one? What about that? And I was like, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I think that was for you, Sam. You felt like the highlight of book 3 and book 4 particularly was that whole plot part, was going around and meeting all the different creatures,
especially Jesper. Jesper
was so feral.
The things that he says, the man that he is, or the elf that he is, wonderful.
He was so funny, because I was like, man, we need a sex icon. We needed one. Like, needed that relief, that comedic relief, but also like, you know, I'm not gonna give away any spoilers, but like the possibility of another interest after everything that had happened. So like introducing him was kind of like,
B texts me. She was like, why isn't she climbing him like a tree? I was like, B, she's grieving. Leave her alone.
I was like, yeah, but I wouldn't have waited. I was like...
Yes. And so so when Grove enters the chat, I was like, man, she's got to like bust his balls. Okay. Like, she has got to really give it to him. So yeah, they were quickly a favorite of mine. And also like I had a serious crush on dark elves growing up.
But they're like two opposites of a magnet, aren't they? Like, that's what I love about them, is they're like two opposite sides of a magnet, and he's trying so hard to force that together. What it does is she's like this, literally in the opposite direction. I love it.
Can we add that to the omnibus?
Yes, but
Can we have a novella?
Actually add that to our long list of our exclusive.
Put that in.
As well, please, thank you.
That's okay. My editor and my beta readers have been like, give it to me, like down my throat, like whispering right here. They're right here. When are we gonna get this? Are we gonna? And then when I did the ending of book 4 and I started wrapping it up, and I was like, you know, it left it open for the possibility of more from Alaric and Riva. And of course, like if there's Alaric and Riva, like there's gotta be a Grove, you know. So yeah. We'll see.
I agree.
It depends. Like, you know, you bother me enough about it and you're like, here's the bullet points. This is what we want. Then I'm going to be like, okay, cool, I'll do it. Because then I'll get inspired. That's the problem. Is I get inspired and then I'm like, I'm writing 5 books at once. I can't stop.
Sam will be in touch with our long list of notes. She will send those over.
We have listeners that have read this series, so I'm going to be like, can you go and message Alyssa
everybody,
as well, please?
everybody, let's go.
Let's just flood her inbox.
Yeah, I love it.
What was the most unexpected challenge you encountered while writing this series?
Writing the grief.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into the headspace of having to write grief of losing 2 people so close to you. In fact, I think it's the 3rd book. The dedication is to my bee. I don't think I could live in a world without you, which is my husband. And so writing such intense grief, like soul crushing grief, was really hard. I remember sitting at my computer a few times and just saying, I don't think I can do it. Like, I think that's why it took me so long to finish it, is because I would sit there and I would say, like, I don't want to think about this. Like, I don't want to go through this. I don't want to have to be, it's so dark that, like, I don't know how I'm going to pull myself out. And my husband has made comments like, please don't go in there and like destroy yourself. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't need you to be like gloom and doom for the rest of eternity. And I totally get it. And so I think that was the biggest thing, is that as I'm writing these things, I'm not realizing it's kind of like an anthill, like a mountain and an anthill or a molehill or whatever they call it. Like, you don't realize how big it is or how small it is. I totally destroyed all that, but I feel like you understand what I'm trying to say, is like, in the thick of it, like, it was fine. And then like I took a step back and it was so much bigger than just that one scene that I wrote. And then I'm like, okay, thanks, brain. Now I have the consequences to my actions. And now I've got to write this in the next 500 pages. Like, and then it's got to follow her. PTSD has to follow her. Way to go. I think that was the biggest hurdle that I was not prepared for.
I think though for us, we both said it in the episode, when I say like, this is not the right wording for this, but we both that was something about both the character Juniper and Riva's stories that the word is not enjoy. I'm trying to think of a better word than enjoy. We resonated with the most, or like
related.
Thank you, related. And we've had other like creators on here that we've interviewed, like specifically like mental health dedicated episodes, and it's something we both like, have got different experiences with, but it's something that we connect over as friends. And pretty much the reason why we started doing this was because we both have our own battles with it, and it was like, do you know what, once a week we get an excuse to sit down and almost like literally shut the world out. I mean, literally, now that we record in Sam's garage, we literally get to like shut the door and it's just the two of us. And we just get to talk about books that we love, and we're just in this bubble. And so when we were both reading Riva and Juniper stories, we were like, oh, that like, but when we say like, I loved it, it's not the word, but like, that's what I love about reading, is that you get to have the escapism. You're in this magical fantasy world with elves and, dragons, but then you have these characters with such harrowing stories. And I think, like you were saying, I can imagine writing that is so difficult, but then, when it's reaching other people, that's the, like telling your story is making it easier for somebody else. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, like they can get through it because like Riva has. So Nesta is...
Say no more. Say no. Say no more.
She resonated with my entire being. Yeah. And so I think that when I really went into this series, I was like, I want to write characters that make me feel like I felt. as she's going, you know, up and down the steps, as she's trying to escape and fight her demons, as she is being the most horrible character and everybody hates her, but like it was me. Like I was like, that's me. And I was like, you know what? I can face whatever I've got to face because like she did it. And so as a reader, that was Nesta for me. Mm-hmm. And so I totally understand what you're saying about Reva and Juniper. And I think that the biggest compliment that like a writer and an author can ever get is that they feel like if you were to shoot me a message and say, I've never felt like that before. Like I felt things that I needed to feel. I let go, or I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a great writer. Like, oh my gosh, they felt everything that I needed them to feel, that the character felt. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest compliment. Like, I want to feel, and I want y'all to feel. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm an author, but like I suck at describing things.
Coming from two people who, well, Sam's literally got a Lady Death jumper on right now. Actually, we're talking about it, and Sam's literally got it on right now. But coming from two people who are nesters,
huge nesters.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we feel that. Yeah, I think we always, when people like criticize Nesta as a character, we always say, I feel like if you are a Nesta, you get it. But if you're not a Nesta and you're on the receiving end of it.
When they say they hate Nesta, you're like, you really hate me then. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah. My internal dialogue is
that on that.
Yeah. I get it.
So we're coming to right at the very end. So these are slightly more questions to you, I guess, as a reader now. But what is one book within the fantasy, romance, romantasy genre that you will always recommend to people?
This is one that I didn't even think about.
This one, this always gets people. We will say that. Like this always gets people. I think somebody gave 3 answers once, and we were like, that's fine.
I am an Ella Fields like cheerleader. Her books. I don't know if y'all have read any of her books.
I don't think so.
No, but it's funny that you should say Ella Fields, because somebody in our Discord yesterday put in 2 of her books and were like, has anyone read any Ella Fields? Because I've just eaten these 2 books in like a day. And then there was this whole discussion about Ella Fields. And I was like, well, I'd never heard of her, but now I have. And now she's going in my Goodreads.
So hers are slightly bully. Like the one Amid Clouds of Bone, or
that's the one that they would.
Bones. Yeah, that one is true enemies. Like they try to kill each other. They like it messed with my head so deliciously good. Like I'm like, damn, he is mean. Like he is messed up, and then I'm like, but I want more.
Yeah, sign me up.
And it's a standalone.
Oh,
I think most of her stuff is a duology. Like she only does like duologies or standalones. I haven't read any of her dark contemporary romance. I've read her dark fantasy, but if it comes out and it's fantasy, I'm eating it up. Like I don't care. I don't need to read a synopsis. I don't even need to see a cover. If it says Ella Fields on it, I'm like, one click. Her books, like I said, they're kind of bully, but I feel like I need that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Like the true enemies. Like, and I think it's because there's pining. Mm-hmm. Like, even though they're true enemies, he yearns, like, and he, like, there are books when they say certain things or they do certain things, and like I get butterflies. I don't know, like, and it's mostly like angst in your every single one of her books I've read, I've felt that like, oh my gosh, like they don't even have to touch, but he's like eating up the space between them and grabbing her, or like, and so I don't have a specific book, but she is like she's my favorite, period.
We love it. Well, those are all going on the
Yeah.
TBR. And
amazing that you said, Ella, and she's literally been all over our Discord over the last couple of days because one of our listeners has been reading her books, which is amazing.
I'm gonna have to see if she had another book come out, and that's why they're.
Why are you talking about her? What have I missed?
Yes. What is going on? One click.
Okay, our last question. What, if anything, are you currently reading?
I'm not reading anything right now. So I read 16 books last month, and I guess like my brain is just okay. So I will say I downloaded a Megan Quinn book, like a rom-com, just as a palate cleanser, but I have not started on it. Like I'm taking this break and I'm writing the paranormal rom-com. So I try to stay in more like of the same genre so I can get, the snark and the inspiration from that. Like I read The Marriage Hex by Sarah Blue. And like I was dying laughing, but like there was still high stakes. And so things like that. I also downloaded The Hurricane Wars. I haven't really talked about it to anybody, so y'all get exclusive access. Yay! So a rogue prince, adventure, apothecary, enemy kingdoms, and so I am going to be needing to get into that headspace again soon. As soon as I finish The Bewitched by the Voodoo King, I am going to be heading back into fantasy romance. And so the idea came to me, and I was like, a rogue prince who finds himself in an apothecary injured, and like, it all just blows up from there. So, or an exiled rogue prince. So I'm really excited. That's where I'm heading probably next year. It'll probably actually happen earlier than next year because I'm going to sit with the Bewitched by the Voodoo King and maybe like, what do I do with my life now?
I love it.
So yes, and it might be a duology. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm very excited. Yeah,
sign us up.
We will eat it up.
Yeah, every inch of it. So that is all our questions. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. We really appreciate it.
I mean, thank you so much for submitting to the Author Spotlight. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to read this series, because it became my whole personality. Once I read book 1, I was like, oh, now I've read 3 of them. Whoopsies.
And now I'm Juniper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for loving my words. Like, it's so hard out there to not only be indie, but just to be a writer, especially because like I'm in the Bible Belt. I'm in Southern Louisiana. So I get a lot of hate. And so it's so nice and refreshing. Like I'm like, all my best friends just love my books. Like I'm like, hey, like you can say that we're friends because we're friends. Like
yes.
We got another one. It's you and Rachel on the list.
Name drop, okay? Say that. No, I'm not. I'm small potatoes, but yeah, it makes me. There are days where I sit here and I say, is it worth it? Like to keep going, because it's hard. The negative reviews, or like somebody will give you a 1 star and they'll be like, this book was great. What? Or the ending was so predictable. I'm so tired of this author, or this author was not for me. And so you sit there and you're like, do I continue? Like, how do I keep going on? I can't tell you how many times I sat at this computer and I'm like, I'm going to quit tomorrow. Like, I'm going to put out a notice to everyone and their mom that I am done. And then you get people who are like, I love your books. I love you. I can't wait till the next one. Juniper's my entire personality. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep going. Okay, you love it. Cool, I'll keep going, because it's hard. And so when y'all love it, it makes it worth it. It makes it better, and I can keep going. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for taking time. We appreciate it. And as we said, if you put it on a plate, we will eat it up. We're so here for it. So we're so
Whatever
excited.
You want to serve us.
That will take 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much.
And I will definitely be in touch about all the hardbacks. And
yes, 100%. I need to add to that.
We hope you enjoyed that interview as much as we did. Me and B came away from that interview thinking, yeah, we've made a friend because we are on the same wavelength. We have the same personalities, the same sense of humour. We cannot get enough of A Lonergan. And we hope you enjoyed getting a bit of background on where the characters came from, where the story came from, the passion and everything that went into this story that we are so captivated by. If you were affected by anything that was said in this interview relating to mental health, then please know that our DMs are always open. You can always reach out to us. We're here to talk if you need to. We will be back next week with The Memory Puller and The Exile and the Saviour by Chris K. Haynes. And then the following week, we will be interviewing Chris on the podcast. And that is our last episode of season 1. We are taking a 2-week break and then we will be back for season 2 at the end of March, starting with our 8 weeks of Throne of Glass. We are doing a Throne of Glass reread. We are doing a read along on our Discord. You can join us on Discord. It's linked in our link tree in our bio on Instagram and TikTok. And you can see our thoughts in real time as we read the books. There's lots of other fun discussions on our Discord, but we will see you next week. Thanks so much for listening.
Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at A Pod of Smut and Wingspan.
See you next week.
Bye.